Evening, detectives. It's been a while since I've darkened this corner of the city, but I figured it's time for this old sleuth to get back to the case. Today we're picking up where we left off, diving back into the shadows of Gotham where the Dark Knight detective stalks the streets and trouble's always one step behind. With the Penguin slinking back into the limelight in Matt Reeves' spin-off from The Batman, it's as good of a time as any to dig through the grime of his comic book history. Like most of Gotham's underworld, and the Bat himself, Oswald Cobblepot's roots stretch deep, tangled in the murky past. Sure, some of those old tales haven't stood the test of time. Their edges dulled with age, but Cobblepot's been through quite the evolution since then. Still, if you sift through the yellow pages, there are gems to be found. Stories where the art alone bleeds Gotham's cold, grey heart. Some of them are worth the look, if only to remember where the twisted bird first learned to fly. Batman's got a gallery of rogues that puts most to shame. A parade of shadows crawling from Gotham's gutters. Among them, waddling out of the filth, is one Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin. Created by the same twisted minds that birthed the Bat, cane and finger, Cobblepot slithered into the pages of Detective Comics number 58, back in 1941. Since then, he's been the kind of criminal who could gut you while whistling a tune about birds. Obsessed with his feathered friends, sure, but it's his umbrellas you gotta watch out for. Those things do more than keep the rain off his head. And speaking of his head, you'll usually see it topped with a slick top hat, a monocle pierced in place, and a cigarette holder clenched between his teeth. Though we probably won't catch him with that in the Penguin TV show that is appearing on September 19th. Maybe Gotham's air is just too thick for smoking these days. Before we get started, I want to thank SlashFilm.com and GameRant.com for the inspiration for this video. I got a lot of my information from this video from their articles that I'll be posting in the video description. Our first case comes from Penguin, Pain and Prejudice, a dark, gritty, and psychological tale that drags you all the way back to where it began. Oswald Cobblepot's childhood. Greg Hurwitz and Simon Kudranski lay it all bare, the torment, the abuse, the relentless cruelty that twisted a lonely boy into the monster you see today. You'll feel the weight of it too. The suffocating sense of pity as Oswald grows up, haunted by every scar. And then there's Batman, looming in the background. To the Penguin, he's the final bully, the one he can't beat, no matter how much blood he spills. There's a moment where you think, maybe, just maybe, Oswald could find something close to love. But that darkness inside him, it's too deep, too cold. And trusting someone? Well, that's a luxury that Cobblepot can't afford. Kudranski's art, paired with John Callis's cold palette, wrap it all in a suffocating cloak of shadow. Every panel feels heavy with the weight of Gotham's cold indifference, reflecting the way the light's long since gone out of Oswald's life. By the time you finish, you might understand the Penguin, but you won't forgive him. The story isn't about redemption. It's about what happens when the world makes a monster and leaves him to rot. Our second story takes a deep dive into bullies from Batman number 23.3, which stands as a standout Penguin tale, and a great starting point for understanding who Oswald Cobblepot really is. The plot zeroes in on the complex connection between Penguin and Governor Charles Winston. Back when they were kids, Winston was the only one who stood up for Oswald during those brutal playground days. But now, as adults, Winston's using his political clout to challenge the crime boss he once protected. The bitter irony doesn't go unnoticed. Cobblepot's got a long memory, and he doesn't forgive easily. While Bullies doesn't reinvent the wheel, it shines when it comes to showing Penguin's cunning and his willingness to get up close and personal with some ruthless violence. You get a front row seat to his scheming, and when things turn bloody, Cobblepot's more than ready to do the dirty work himself. Visually, the Penguin's portrayal here is something else. His contemptuous grin is more than just a look. It's a window into the ugliness of his soul. The artwork captures his malice in a way that feels almost unsettling, adding an extra layer of menace to each scene. He leaves you with a lingering sense of unease, like you've been watching something far darker than just a crime story. The next chapter in our grim journey is Penguin Triumphant, a 1992 one-shot by John Ostrander, Joe Stanton, and Bob Smith. This one's a real curveball in the Penguin saga, where Cobblepot decides to put on a new mask, that of a respectable businessman. But don't let the suit and tie fool you. Behind that facade lies the same old Oswald, plotting and scheming as always. This time, he's not just up against Batman. He's setting his sights on Bruce Wayne himself. It's a classic game of one-upmanship between two supposed gents of Gotham, though one's a bit more crooked than the other. Ostrander, who carved his name with the modern Suicide Squad, doesn't bother softening the Penguin's rough edges. Instead, he dives straight into the muck, serving up a tale where Cobblepot's attempt at legitimacy is just another layer of his rotten scheme. The story kicks off with a dream sequence that's almost too delicious to end. Picture Oswald as a suave villain in London, with Jim Gordon stumbling around as a hapless fool. Staton and Smith's art captures the caper with a touch of whimsy that fits the surreal narrative perfectly. While this tale could have been a fleeting distraction, it turns out to be a pivotal moment in shaping the modern Penguin. From this point on, he'd be rebranded as a criminal mastermind with the veneer of respectability, running the Iceberg Lounge and dabbling in organized crime. It's a trick that's worked wonders for Lex Luthor in the late 80s, and made a lasting impact on Gotham's favorite bird of prey. Next up in our descent into Gotham's darkness is He Who Laughs Last, a 2008 entry by Jason Aaron and Jason Pearson from the Joker Asylum series. Each issue in this grim collection gives the Joker a stage to spin tales of Gotham's most notorious villains, and Penguin's turn here is no exception. It's not as deep of a dive into Oswald's twisted psyche as Pain and Prejudice, but it carves out a brutal portrait of the man beneath the top hat. In this story, Penguin's got a dark twist on a so-called kind gesture. What starts as a seemingly charitable act quickly devolves into something far more sinister, proving once again that Oswald Cobblepot's veneer of civility is nothing more than a mask for his grotesque nature. It's a chilling reminder of just how monstrous Penguin can be, and how he sees himself as a paragon of criminal sophistication. The gentleman of crime, he calls himself, with all the delusion of a man lost in his own filth. Aaron may only have a single issue to make his mark, but he does it with a ruthless efficiency, using the Joker's perspective to color the narrative. And let's face it, if the Joker's spinning the yarn, you know you're getting a story twisted with just as much madness as truth. Pearson's artwork intensifies the experience, rendering Penguin as both a looming menace and a pathetic figure, exposing the cruel irony of his grandiose facade. The title He Who Laughs Last alludes to a morbid scrapbook in which Penguin meticulously records the stories and obituaries of those who dared mock him. This isn't your typical crime caper, it's a dive into horror, peering into the darkest recesses of Penguin's mind, and it pulls no punches. Our last dive into the dark is Batman, Earth 1 Volume 1. Released in 2012, this entry in the Earth 1 series took a sledgehammer to classic characters, from Batman to Superman, and reassembled them on a fresh, uncharted Earth. This way, they sidestepped the tangled mess of DC's existing continuity. Gary Frank and Jeff Johns didn't just retread Batman's origins, they delivered a gritty, compelling twist on the familiar tale. Frank's artwork, as always, brings a raw edge to the story, making it as engaging as it is fast-paced. In this tale, Penguin doesn't dominate the stage, but his role is far from insignificant. Oswald Cobblepot, Gotham's crooked mayor, is suspected by Bruce Wayne of being the very man who snuffed out his parents' lives. The Penguin's presence here adds a deliciously twisted layer to the narrative. He's not just a gangster, he's a potential puppet master behind Bruce's tragedy, a real thorn in the Dark Knight's side. The beauty of Batman Earth 1 lies in its reimagining. Alfred gets a modern overhaul, and Batman is still rough around the edges, a work in progress rather than polished vigilante we know. Cobblepot's portrayal here is as dark as it gets, fitting snugly into the new take on Gotham's seedy underbelly. It's a story that stitches together the threads of Penguin's sinister nature with a powerful Batman origin that stands out in the noir landscape. I won't spill the beans on whether the Penguin really is the puppet master behind Wayne's tragedy. That's a twist you'll have to discover by watching my future video. Alright detectives, it's time to put your fedoras on and spill the beans. I want to know which Penguin story from tonight's review pulled you in and why. How do you see the Penguin's dark deeds stacking up against Batman's other villains? Does he carve out a unique space in the underworld or just blend into the shadows? And what about the upcoming Penguin show? Are you chomping at the bit, or are you more skeptical about how they'll spin this grim tale? If you've sunk your teeth into any of these Penguin comics, which one had you hooked, and what's your verdict? Finally, I'm itching to hear what aspects of the Penguin's character you find most chilling and intriguing. What makes him tick? And why does he leave such a mark on the noir landscape of Gotham? Leave it all out for me, and let's crack this case wide open. As we wrap up this journey through Gotham's darkest corners, remember that this isn't the end of our descent into the shadows. I'll be dissecting each of these tales in detail in upcoming videos, so make sure you're subscribed to stay tuned. If you've got a taste for the twisted side of Gotham, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more. And with the Penguin show premiering soon, there's no better time to get excited for a deep dive into one of Gotham's most enigmatic figures. Stay sharp, detectives. There's more darkness ahead.